streaming. Okay, and we are live.
And welcome. Welcome to our very first episode of metaThink. Sorry, my mind actually went for a thinking walk there as I was thinking about metaThink. So welcome to metaThink, our very first episode of everything and everything in between technology, space, and two brothers discussing these issues from various parts of the world. I'm Carlos, and I'm based in Finland. The handsome young man to my left is my younger brother, Mark, who's based in Texas in the United States. We both have we have different opinions on many things, and on many things we have very similar opinions despite not being in the same country and around the same coffee table. So we decided to share our ideas and thoughts on air, so to speak, so where we can talk and discuss ideas, etc., and hopefully people can join in and enjoy some of those conversations. It wasn't anything about money or anything along those lines. I have an amazing brother who's got a deep mind that I'd like to probe. God, that sounds rather. But anyway, so let's not worry about probing, and we'll continue with the discussions and see where we go, and hopefully people enjoy what we've got to say about certain subjects. Mark, I don't know if you want to say hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm back. I know it's been like 10 years or so since we had the whole gaming thing, but my hope is everybody who was into that channel, it's 10 years later, they're all, adults now, probably still into gaming, but also probably still into technology and culture and TV and comedy and all this kind of stuff. So we're just going to try to have some fun here, talk about some cool stuff that's happening, what's going on in the world today from not necessarily from a political sense, but I mean, obviously the intersection of technology and culture is the defining challenge of our age as a species. So,
Yep.
I think, until we can figure out how to adjust as humanity to downregulate our brains to getting, 10,000 likes in 30 minutes, I think it's going to be bumpy.
Yeah.
So which brings us to our first topic for the week, which is AI and this chat bot and all this kind of stuff. Carlos, do you have the stream open?
I don't have the stream open.
Okay, let me send you a link.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. I'm gonna put up that that graphic that I was talking about earlier.
Yep.
So this is a graphic that shows how quickly ChatGPT GPT got to 100 million users, which was essentially in like 12 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas
insane.
Facebook, Netflix, Twitter, all these companies, it took a lot longer to get to that that type of usership.
Yep.
And I think before we got on the stream, you and I were talking about the Bing, how Bing is basically changing to use this technology now, and how it's been a little bit bumpy as well, right? But the ChatGPT chat interface is actually pretty revolutionary. I mean, it's extremely intuitive and powerful.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I've used it a little bit and experimented with it, and being a Star Wars fan, and I mean, I'm a fan of many things. But anyway, I also watch and follow a couple of YouTubers that enjoy sort of discussing Star Wars theories. One of them, famous channels, fantastic guy, and he was using the ChatGPT to ask it questions about sort of Star Wars canon, etc. So that was quite interesting as a curve in the AI scenario. But as a web developer, I changed careers about 2.5 or 3 years ago into the SARS industry and started learning to code and become a web developer myself. Lost my business due to Corona. And I mean, I was in the travel and tourism business for close on 17, 18 years, my own business, small business, small company. There was no bailouts for little companies. If you were a large entity, as always, you get massive bailouts.
No
and you can pay
PPP
your staff.
program. I don't know why they call it the
Yeah, no,
PPP. That's just a horrible name for something like this. You know what?
yeah. So
Let's call it the
there was no
PPP.
help. There was no help for little guys. I mean, no help. I mean, even like if they said, okay, look, we can't pay you any wage or keep you sort of going, but we will cover your electrical, your, sort of your lights and water bill so that you can at least stay operating during this pandemic or whatever you wanted to call it. So after a few months, I started racking up debts with no income. I worked in the tourism travel industry, so it was the first casualty of an epidemic when everybody had to lock down and stay indoors. Of course, travel literally came to a standstill. And while a few people celebrated that there was less emissions in the air from no airplanes flying, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people across the continent where I was working, which was Africa at the time. I was a safari specialist, so I've grown up in Africa and have a very fond love for Africa and its wildlife and its people. And all my clients were African companies, and they all had to cancel literally within 2 or 3 weeks of the outbreak starting. And then basically I racked up debts. And in Finland, where I live, if you have a debt of even $200, next week it becomes 300, and the week after 400,
wow.
and et cetera, et cetera. And then it starts to mushroom because the 500, the percentage that you put on it becomes 700, and then 700 becomes 1,000, and 1,000 becomes 1,800, and it mushrooms really quickly from a small bill, because you get handed over to collectors who then put massive interests on it. They're allowed these exceptional interest rates. So they don't come to your house and take anything. They just wait for it to grow as much as possible. Then they'll take everything.
Right.
So,
wow.
So anyway, after a few months of trying to be the good business citizen and staying open and keeping, because I was told it was going to be 2 weeks to stop the curve. And so I was all in to just hang in there and this will be over soon. And then it wasn't. And and I couldn't carry those bills. And I mean, I was having a rough time anyway at that time, at that moment. So you sort of delve into your savings, and then the savings disappears. And then I just said, no, I'm calling it quits. I had to declare bankruptcy, which was extremely humiliating as someone at my age. And then I decided, okay, how can I sort of future-proof my career? And I always liked sort of playing with HTML. And I know that's not a programming language because it's a hypertext, what do you call it, markup language. But I sort of played with it a little bit, and I sort of enjoyed it. And I sort of liked working on my own, a bit of an introvert.
Absolutely.
And then just I thought, okay, well, I've got nothing to lose. Everyone's indoors, and I've got no company, and I just started studying. Took a couple of Udemy courses and LinkedIn courses and whatever I could find, and YouTube tutorials, and I went mad, and then joined a boot camp, and then did the boot camp, and I continue learning now even after my boot camp. So I've had a lot of time, and when ChatGPT came out in November, I was busy with my final project, which was a social media website. And believe it or not, it's still not finished because I took a very ambitious project that I wanted to do. Instead of just a very simple social media thing, I wanted to do much more. And for a first project, with hindsight, I should have just chosen something relatively simple, got it working. But I'm sort of ADD, so it was like I'll do all of these things.
Right. Yeah.
and anyway, the lesson learned was to keep it simple and focus on getting something working. But it was a great experience. I loved every minute and frustration, and I will finish it with time. And in that process, I was using ChatGPT because I don't have like a Rolodex or of people that are coders that I can pick up the phone or send a Slack message or a WhatsApp message or a Signal message or whatever and say, hey, I'm struggling with state or use effect in React. I don't know where it's supposed to, why something keeps rendering. What am I doing wrong? So I had ChatGPT as a AI teacher, and I would say, I'm busy building this app. I'm trying to get this component that I'm building to work. Here's my code. What am I doing wrong? And then ChatGPT would say, no, you see, you're declaring your state before your variable should be a global variable. It should be outside of the function, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it helped me. It didn't code for me. I think there's a misconception that it does all code by itself. I mean, it scans a very large database of code, but it sort of advises. And I suppose you can ask it to code something, and it probably could. But because technology is moving so fast and the ground is moving so quickly, ChatGPT, for example, as a developer, is already outdated because what they're using are libraries and frameworks from a year ago.
Right.
So,
well, and I think just think about
yeah.
the comparison to how you would have done that before, right? You would have gone to
Oh,
Google,
right, yeah.
you would have asked a question about, use
Yep.
state within React, and it would have given
Yep.
you a whole bunch of responses about, here's how you do
Yep.
functional components, right? Here's
Yep.
how you do class-based components, and here's your render,
Yep.
and here's your use state, and here's your use effect. And, oh, are you doing Redux? Or, how are you doing state management? And
Yep.
basically the whole thing would have
Yep.
been you reading and reading and reading, page after page after
Yep.
page, to try to find that nugget, that needle in the haystack that says, hey, this is how I can apply this that I'm reading to what I'm actually doing. Whereas with the chatbot, you were able to just say, hey, this is the problem I have. And it's essentially going and reading all of those thousands of web pages to figure out exactly how to apply that knowledge to your problem.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the famous website, for an example, is Stack Overflow. So whenever a developer gets into trouble, you would normally, even Stack Overflow is a little bit outdated. Which is horrible to say because it's been such an incredible resource over the last years. But already now, you can get answers a lot quicker just by, search engine wise, as you said, Mark, by using Google, and you get not just Stack Overflow, but you'll get an array of people or developers that have written Medium articles on use state and given examples, and you can go through their example and look at the syntax and go, where is their function? Oh, it's outside. Okay, that's a global variable they declared. The global variable they declare up front at the top. Okay, and okay, I'm understanding it better. So,
Sure.
Generally developers spend like 80% of their time Googling than they do coding as such. It's just part of your makeup because nothing is the same. And even if you've written something for a how can I say, you're rendering a photograph somewhere, and I want to render a photograph, it might be very similar what I need from what you've coded, but it generally is never going to be exactly the same unless it is like you're cloning YouTube and the colors and everything is going to be the same. So if you're cloning, you can generally get help directly. But ChatGPT has been amazing. And then, of course, on top of all of this wonderful news, it launched in November. It's now just mid-February, so we're 3.5 months in. It's gone insane. You can hardly get in. It's overloaded all the time.
Right.
Bing is about to start using it, and then last week, of course, Google announces that holy shit buckets. Oh, sorry, I was going to try not to swear, and then I did anyway. So Google decided that, well, actually, like you said, they're extremely threatened by this whole thing because their whole business model and advertising model is literally about to be a house of cards. and their promise of AI, which was not, as far as I understand from articles I've read, was not supposed to be now. It was supposed to be in the pipeline and to be developed and released. But ChatGPT sort of just one-upped them and released earlier and literally caught them with the pants down. So they're desperately trying to release Bard, which is their version of ChatGPT. And I've been daily looking to see if there's any update on that, and nothing as of yet that I can find. But there is promise that it's imminent. So
Yeah, and I
all
just
of
am
these
curious to
things,
see what, there's a lot of knock-on effects here that could happen with this too, right? I mean, it's not just a
yeah,
matter of, well, if you recall, like in the beginning, Alta Vista, Yahoo, Metacrawler, these type of directory sites, there would be a
yeah,
search box that people would go to search for things. But of course, that whole page would load full of advertising and all kinds of stuff. And that's how they monetized it, right? When Google came
right,
along, they said, well, we're just going to have a blank page with nothing but a search box in it. And everybody was like, wow, that loads a lot faster, right? It probably saved a few billion hours of human time just by not having to load all that crap. Uh,
right,
but they invented AdWords so they could monetize the results by delivering targeted results based on keyword searches for their customers, for their advertising partners. But, even when those search results are clicked now, many of the businesses downstream, whether they're content producers or their news websites or their blogs or whatever, they garner their revenue through advertising on those platforms. And so if ChatGPT is reading all the web pages in the world and giving you the distilled answer, all of a sudden visiting most of the websites online no longer becomes a necessity.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
what's that going to mean for, news websites, or I mean, news websites maybe not be the best example because they've already been kind of caught up in this whole content aggregation question, right? Um, and there's been even legislation proposed to try to get them money for what they do, et cetera. But, think about blogs, think about, you know, tech blogs, tech crunch, industry websites. I mean, all the traffic flows through YouTube search box or Google search box right now.
Yeah,
And now they're trying to figure out. So it's kind of like Google has this AdWords engine, and it's a marketplace thing where you buy keywords and they deliver things. So now it's going to be you're buying keywords and they're delivering you some chat GPT response that recommends your product. But it's going to become a lot less clear to the user what is sponsored and what isn't sponsored. And
what is
there'll be
accurate and what isn't?
what is
Yeah,
inaccurate,
sure.
and there'll be no advertising revenue from a page impression standpoint for any of those downstream publishers.
Yeah, you'll be paid on answers, like how many answers were given to that request.
Right. Which seems to
It's
me like a further consolidation of the traffic on the internet, which is kind of scary, honestly. But
yeah, yeah. Oh, look, I mean, there's half of me, there's half of me that's like completely excited by the prospect of what this part can do, and there's the other half of me that's like, I'm wondering, like how far the potential to cancel out human creativity will go.
yeah, yeah, I think that there's also, it's just like with all AI, there's ethical questions. I mean, what's going to happen to people or industries that are disrupted by this? How's it going to impact the tech space? How's it going to impact knowledge workers? How's it going to impact people who are doing creative? It was always the assembly line worker that was worried about the machines coming in and doing their job, but now we're looking at the
Right.
machines doing the job of creative people who are writing, outlines for shows and people who are creating
Everything.
articles,
You're talking
blogs.
contractual. I mean, Jordan Peterson, which you will show in a few minutes, he had asked ChatGPT to do a contract um, for an event, and it whipped it out in seconds. And yes, it
Yeah.
might not have been the perfect contract, but it was very useful, viable, and was put together well. And this is just 3.5 months in. So after a year, you can ask the question like lawyers, accountants, I mean, event organizers, travel agents. I mean, so many. It's not going to cut your hair. So the people that were doing manual work, welding, cutting hair, and things like that are going to be super well paid in the future, because they're doing something that AI. Well, I mean, robotics can get there, but I don't know if robotics will have creativity without input. So,
Well, there is
I'm
AI art. There's that company Lenza that was built on the Stable Diffusion AI, the free AI API, and they basically
yeah,
rang like $40 million in 4 months selling these little avatar AI avatar packs for
yeah,
people. But it's pretty cool stuff. But I mean, I just don't necessarily know um, if it's something that the artwork seems a little flat, right? It doesn't seem to have that same
yeah.
characteristic of quality, creative quality that, let's say, you would expect from a real artist, right?
Right. Yeah, I've prepared. I've got a couple of pages here that I'm going to try and share with you. I don't know if I can. Do I share it through
The signal. Or are you gonna? Are you gonna?
through
Are you gonna?
Signal?
Are you gonna? Yeah, I can bring them up. Or do you want to share them on your desktop? You can just change to share your desktop as well.
Um, okay, I can try that. Okay, so I'm going to try and share my screen. Can you see it?
Yep.
So can you see my screen with DALL-E
Yep.
or
I can see it.
DALL-E or?
Dali. Yep.
Okay, so that's obviously there are quite a few AI websites now, and there's a lot more of them growing. But I mean, DALL-E is a famous one that's going on at the moment. I think it was originally called, or it's from Lexica, which was the Lexica AI originally. But you can see in the top corner here, it's got the introducing ChatGPT's research release. So connected to the OpenAI system, which is part of that Microsoft system. But DALL-E is, as far as I remember, it's image-based and can create images and art from a description in natural language. So you give it a description, and then it draws an astronaut, teddy bear, bowl of soup, riding a horse, etc., and the picture is developed from there. So that's DALL-E. I wanted to show you one or two others. The next one I'll show you is called Astria, and Astria does tailor-made AI image generation. You feed it with some images, and then it generates an AI photograph, but it also can do product and other things. It can make them really nice as well. So as a developer, sometimes I'm developing pages, and you might have heard of frameworks like Bootstrap, which is a famous framework with components. But the problem with using frameworks like Bootstrap is that every website starts to look the same. So designers and UI people start to try and look for ways to make their websites look better. And I think AI is going to come into just making them a bit more unusual looking in the future. Here's Let Jasper, which is Jasper AI. You let Jasper write your marketing copy, and you can load and try this for free. The next one is Luma. Luma is a 3D application AI. I think it's from where I live in Finland originally, and it basically you can learn how to capture photographs and use them and put them into 3D structure. It's quite phenomenal, and is something that if you want to play around with, you definitely should give it a try, and you'll start to realize and see how they make sort of gaming 3D models and the likes. So absolutely very cool. And inserting them into cities and inserting them into pictures that you've got, and etc. etc. So that's one. Luma AI is pretty fun. Then you've got Runway. Runway is a video editing tool, AI, so you can let it video edit for you, and you can replace things like it's doing on, as you can see on the screen. That is quite phenomenal. And also, if you want to do something unusual, we might do something for our little channel here in the future. And then there's Durable. Durable is a website AI builder. So you can type, if I go back to the main site, you can literally type make a website in 30 seconds. So you give it a name, and so you write what you want it to be. Let's just say reflexologist as just a purely, what's the name of your business? Feet are us. Okay, and it's building a website.
That's pretty cool, man.
So AI will generate a website for us, and we'll see what it does. It's busy thinking. And also, I've got so many things open on my computer that I might not be the best. But let's see what it develops here. So while it's developing, there are others like GFP-GAN, GAN, GFP-GAN is a AI that if you have old photographs of your grandparents or your great grandparents and they're all sepia in color and cracked and just you don't see them properly, you can scan them and put them into GFP GAN, and that will redo the photographs with proper colors and rejuvenate them so that they can be restored, which is a very cool tool in terms of keeping our history, being able to save your history and family histories, and not just that, but mankind, etc. All those old books, etc. We can get them and restore them quite nicely with some AI. Okay, this is still building. Let's see. I'll go to another one. Another website builder is Midjourney. Also website design. It's got this very crazy sort of website.
Text art kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Sort of 80s vibey. Let's have a look here. Advisors, Jim Keller from Tesla, Intel, CEO of GitHub. Okay, so some top dudes in the industry. Community showcase. I'm wondering if this one is built yet. And now my browser. I'm using Firefox for this one because I have my other browsers open already for the stream. But anyway, I've shared those with you for now. I think that'll give you an idea. Let me just see. How do I stop the stream?
Yeah, you can just go back to your stop sharing.
Yep. I'll just find it. Stop sharing. So that's, I've got more, and I did some research on that today. So there's a lot of possibility out there with regards to what's on offer in terms of AI, and it's mushrooming. I mean, there are APIs. I was looking through a couple of tutorials to see, because I'm learning React Native at the moment, and I was wondering if there was, and already there are developers out there that are using APIs with AI to have like a bot that talks back to you, or for example, there's one that's called Marv, the sarcastic bot and stuff. So there's a lot that can be done. So I'm just saying that in terms of how and where AI is going, it's very, very interesting. And you'll even hear now from George Peterson, Jordan Peterson's recent discussion that he had a couple of weeks ago, where he spoke about AI and what's happening this year. And I think Mark will hit the
this
play
year.
button there so we
So
can just
get
watch a little
ready.
bit of that before we
Okay,
move
so
on.
now we have an AI model that can extract a model of the world from the entire corpus of language. All right, and it's smarter than you, and it's going to be a hell of a lot smarter than you in 2 years. So you can
There's no
get ready for
volume.
that too. But it's not that smart yet because it's just a
No
humanities
volume on where?
professor at
On
the
the stream?
moment. It doesn't
I can't
test
hear
its
anything. Oh, unless everybody
linguistic knowledge against the real world.
can. Oh, yes, I got it.
That's what a scientist does, right? You come up with a theory that's linguistically predicated, and then you throw it against the world and see if it sticks.
No,
and then
it's
the
fine.
world tells you whether or not your linguistic construction is valid. But the new AI systems will be able to extract out patterns from the world itself, from images and so forth, and then be able to test their linguistic constructions against the world, and so they'll practice just like scientists. And the most advanced models are going to use text and image and action as well, because they'll be able to model human action. And so, and all of that's going to come down the pipes within the next year. So hang on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen, because what did my friend Jonathan Pajot say? Giants are going to walk the earth once more. And we're going to live through that, maybe. So, anyways.
In terms of our rights.
So what do you think about that, Carlos? I mean, you know, what he's saying, is it going to become even more difficult to tell what's real and what's not real? Like, for example, I saw a story the other day about a Twitch streamer who was the target of some AI porn type thing, like where they like used her likeness and image and had AI generated, you know, adult content that,
Oh, yeah.
and she was on stream in tears and visibly shaken by this, you know, even though it wasn't her, I guess, but still, you know, think about having a video of politicians. I think back to the Trump era, 2015, with the Access Hollywood tape, for example, right? You know, that was the big deal where he was,
Yeah.
you know, imagine if they could make audio or video of anybody saying anything they wanted, right?
Oh, yeah.
That could, you know, be used, weaponized, especially in an information overload time where everybody's basically kind of, you know, already has too much to try to filter or make sense of it in the first place.
I mean, just think about the depth that it can go, because I mean, corporations now even have your DNA. I mean, some how many 100 million people have tested their DNA to see where their ancestry is, etc. And as far as I remember, it was like a year, even 2 years ago, Bayer, big pharmaceutical company from Germany,
The aspirin people
bought out all the ancestor.com or whatever it was, the famous website where you look up your ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
Ancestry.com. So bought out all the DNA tests related to that. So in the future, literally with your, I mean, I don't even want to talk about that. It's quite scary.
Yep,
but,
for sure.
Yeah, look, AI is revolutionary. Is there a positive side to it? Yes. Could they help a small African village who's wanting to do an operation, and you could have a doctor log in and help help an operation or a surgical operation from Berlin into North Sudan via connection, and then through
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
help an AI finish off an operation with the sutures and everything. I don't know. I think it's the positive side. If I look at them, there's going to be some great things coming out of it. It can help enhance creativity. I really don't think it can replace creativity. But I mean, I'm one of those guys that when I go to the supermarket and they've got 20 checkout lines at the big supermarket, and there's three staff members manning the cash register and there's all of these self-checkout lines for the rest. And I've been watching that it started off with just 2 little self-checkout lines and 20 staff, and then it was 8 checkout lines and 10 staff, and then it was 12 or 15 checkout lines and 2 staff, and I mean,
now I go in there and there's not even anybody working there anymore. You have to go through this. That's all there is.
Exactly. I mean, okay, now the other side of me kicks in is because if you've got nothing for people to do in the future, what are you going to do? You're just going to give them a UBI, pay them a basic government grant just to
But that doesn't
sit home, have a
necessarily,
beer and
that doesn't
game?
make them feel needed, right? That doesn't
Yeah.
make them feel
There's
productive.
the hierarchy of needs. You need to be contributing. You need to feel useful. You need to be challenged. You need to push yourself to another level so that you can be better and learn and grow. And that's a human being.
Right.
So
Well,
there's part of it that scares me. Yeah.
yeah, I think it scares, it's a little scary to everybody, especially when you think about, you know, we've seen a lot of great technology change the world, especially over the last like 20 or 30 years. But we've also
Yeah.
seen a lot of that technology be used for nefarious purposes, right? And
Right.
you know, I don't necessarily know that as a species we're really good at balancing that out. I don't think we're not so good at saying, you know, we'd like to. I think during the Super Bowl, even like they had a halftime show where they had the dancing dog robots in the Super Bowl halftime.
Yeah,
And
I
you know,
saw that.
a
Yeah.
lot of people were on Twitter saying, you know, aren't these the same dogs that they put guns on? You know, that are supposed to be like
Yep.
storming the
Yep.
battlefield.
They are.
Yeah, it's a
Yep.
little scary, you know, to kind of think that, you know, of
Yeah.
course, you know, I mean, I can make the differentiation between that. It's all about the application. But behind the application, there is the actor, right? Who's using it and for what
Yeah.
purpose?
Oh,
So,
that's exactly what it comes down to. Yeah. And we talked about in our test run the owning your digital citizenship, so that you own your fingerprint on the on the interwebs.
right,
And I think that's important simply because as a democracy, I understand that some company has tracked that I buy, I don't know, winter boots every 2 years, and when to put an advert, and that because the winter's coming and so many months, and then to advertise to me in my feed that, hey, winter boots are on sale at this website. I get it, and I understand even the benefits of that. That if I'm looking for something, I can find them, and I don't want to see dresses for sale because I don't wear dresses. So it's tailored to my needs, and I get it. And having worked in growth and being part of that, you want to track and you want to be able to sell to the people that you know are going to be open to buying your product. And yes, I mean, you want to sell your product to people that don't know they want it, and you want to convince them to buy it. And I don't want to get into sort of psychology, sales, how to convince people and all that stuff. Just regular people looking for, hey, I'm trying to find, I don't know, a gate for the back of my car to stop my dog from flying through the back seat if I put the brakes on, and I need to buy this gate that fits my car exactly. And I go online, and whatever the case is, and then it knows my car, it knows the model, it knows me, and it puts other things. Oh, and you might want I don't know, something for your headlights to stop the stones from chipping it. I don't know. That's good marketing because they're tailored to me and they're selling to me, and so I'm okay with all of that. But when you don't own your digital footprint and it gets sold to somebody else, that they then could open accounts on your behalf on Twitter to, I don't know, I don't even, it makes me, there's so many things that could be done with it, in terms of taking my ID and using it for something else, or targeting me. If I write something on Facebook that, damn, that whatever dude was a bit of a knob for saying this about my football team, or whatever the case is, and the next second I've got someone bashing down my door because I said something on Facebook. And I understand that, even a part of me understands that to a certain degree, but we all have to be big enough to know that people are going to say stuff, especially when they're anonymous online. Generally, they're going to say all sorts of shit that they can get away with.
right.
And in a way, it's like
It's almost like
screaming into the void.
it's almost like a venting function,
Yeah,
right?
you're screaming into the void. You've been working 2 jobs. You get home and your wife has grilled you because you still haven't painted the front gate, and all you want to do is just lie down and just relax for 10 minutes or whatever the case is, and you go onto Twitter or whatever the case is, and you just blow off some steam because someone writes something, and then you say, this friggin' dude on his laptop having coffee somewhere, and I'm working my ass off. I'm going to just, scream into the void and tell him to whatever, And as much as I understand that's not polite, it's not nice, etc., I'd rather that's out in the open than some dude that's now festering and being sitting in a dark room somewhere and then runs to a shopping center with a gun or something.
Exactly right. Absolutely.
So rather it's in the open. That's like, I mean, I'm no Donald Trump fan, but he deserves the right to be able to have his opinions. And when they removed him from Twitter, I think it was the biggest mistake. It was like the prohibition, when you're making alcohol illegal.
Well, you make him more popular in a sense, right? I mean, you kind of, it's like the Streisand effect in a sense, right? You kind of, you're feeding the very thing that you're fighting at some level.
Yeah. So, I think everybody,
regardless
of what
why
they feel,
I think that is? I think it's because the people. You've never heard of a time where like the censors were the good guys in the end, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying, right? Like it's kind of like it's natural, especially in the West, for us to assume that if somebody doesn't want us to hear something, it isn't because it's completely false and baseless. It's because there's truth to it and they don't want us to know.
Right.
So, all right, well, let's move on to space. That's our next topic for the week.
Yeah, let's do that.
I think
that was a great chat.
I think that we have some video here to look at. I know that SpaceX, we have some video and some pictures to look at. They did their Booster 7 static fire test of all engines, which is, I think, is the most thrust ever generated by a rocket system in the history of mankind. So I'm going to go ahead and share that real quick, and let's see what that looked like.
Any second now.
So here's the water deluge.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Look at the camera flickering from the...
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Look at that.
Oh my goodness.
Look at the wildlife reaction to that. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Okay, so one, we need the confirmation from SpaceX. It was indeed all 33. But that was a multi-second hold-down firing of what looked like
wildlife,
most of them, if not all.
Yeah, I know, right? Like these birds. Imagine being the birds. You're like, you have the fright of your life. It's like all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, like, right? Look, here's some pictures of it from above the tower, right?
Birds are like, man, we were just having a barbecue with some friends.
There's another one. That's a lot of power, man.
Yeah.
Look at those engines. 33 Raptor 2 engines. And I think Elon had posted a thing here of the event as well, which we can share. Let me get back here. From on top and from the side. Yeah. Imagine if that thing had blown up, man. Whew. That would have gone sky high.
I'm glad it didn't.
So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Whoa. I mean, they're expecting the first orbital launch to be early March, which is in like 15 days or 20 days. So I mean,
really,
it's very interesting because this is a fully reusable low Earth orbit transit system that is capable of lifting 175 metric tons into space. So it's a big boy. It's 30 feet wide, 33 engines in the first stage, and it's I mean, it could revolutionize. But I think Elon mentioned that we have to build 1,000 of them if we want to go to Mars. So it's kind of still early, right?
Right.
Still early. I mean, it's fascinating to watch Elon kind of move through this whole thing because he's still doing all this stuff with electric cars and space and solar and all the rest of this. I I don't necessarily know. I mean, I think that him wading into the political and all of this kind of stuff is, you know, it's still undetermined how that's going to impact his other companies. But it does seem to me that, you know, he did have a point when he said that, hey, you know, if we eat ourselves here first and we all, you know, disintegrate our society, then going to Mars won't matter. So I guess that's definitely
Right.
something to think about, right?
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, and we're on the brink of. I mean, the doomsday clock is like seconds away from obliteration, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know if that's just because, you know, it does feel like it's a very few people out there who are making decisions on behalf of the many, and
Yeah.
it does seem to me, or at least for most of my life, it seemed like those few people were very highly aware and interested of what the bulk of the population wanted, and that was the way that they would get elected into office and maintain power. But now it seems like those two things have become completely disconnected from one another. Like I
Yeah.
mean, I can't speak about Europe, but here in the United States, I mean, there's clear popular sentiment trends within the population, and those don't seem to translate into election outcomes at all.
I don't
Uh,
think it's hell of a different between here and there. I mean, traditionally, if you go back prior to COVID-19 or the pandemic, let's call it that, because we don't want any strikes for. But I think that before the pandemic, Europe was on a very different trajectory. It was always sort of open to its neighbors and partners and trading, and it was never belligerent. And, you know, America was always sort of like out there. You're going to trade with us or you're not going to trade with us. Straightforward, no BS kind of thing. Whereas the Europeans were always like, yeah, okay, we'll trade with anybody and everybody and everything's fine, you know, kind of thing. So, but I think that changed in the last 3 years. And you can literally, America is the first domino on whatever. So whatever comes for the world, whether it's a stock market crash or a war or invasions or impact from or petrol or fuel prices, or you can name it, whatever it is, America is the first domino. And as much as we all thought we were on our own trajectories and didn't have to worry about those things, that we've realized very quickly that we're very much connected.
yeah, and I think that the
And
pandemic kind of created for the first time in my lifetime a true sense, at least within the United States, that the limitless growth and the abundance was perhaps coming to an end, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you know, it's now ten
I mean,
dollars
it's
ten
not
dollars a
really
gallon of orange
sustainable.
juice, and for the first time today, what was it? A dozen eggs is now cost more than a pound of beef, which is
Yeah.
pretty crazy, right? You know,
I mean, we knew that. I mean, you have a shoe company, and every year you grow by 15%, and every year from one year to the next, after 2 to 3 generations of owning the shoe company, eventually, you know, one of your generations is going to get to a point where you just can't go up in price or profit every year because the market's just not going to keep growing.
right?
There's going to be competitors, there's going to be innovations, there's going to be change in environments, whatever the case is. There's so many things, and this endless growth of printing money and stuff. I don't know. It was never sustainable.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that companies that like Grado headphones, for example, is one, you know, that comes to mind. Right? These the small
yeah,
companies that do niche things, and they've been doing them for 100 years, or Klipsch, or whatever. You know, I'm thinking in the audio industry, for example, but
yeah,
they build a great product, and they're very consistent, and people know what to expect from them, right? I think, you know, that was the thing. You know, when you walked into a McDonald's, you know what to expect from a Big Mac or whatever the case is, right?
yeah. That's right. Yeah,
And I think that, you know, at least for most of my adult life, and especially as a child, you know, we kind of knew what to expect from our government, for example, and we knew what to expect from our military or whatever, right? And it just doesn't seem like, we see things going on now and we're kind of like, well, that's not what I would have expected to have happen, right? Or
No. Yeah.
and it just seems very disconnected, and there's always this push to try to get people to believe certain facts or certain opinions or whatever the case is, as though
Yeah, you don't know what's out there to believe. It's quite hard
as though
to
having an
find your
opinion, the
way.
wrong opinion, is somehow a punishable offense, right? Like,
Yeah,
I can't speak for others, but I, for one, am always open to reforming my opinions upon
sure.
receipt and
Information.
comprehension of new
Yeah,
information, right?
yeah.
But
And
if the
understanding and empathy and understanding the bigger context. I mean, I'm open to it. I understand that I don't have all the facts at hand, and the opinion I have right now is based on what I have got, and that I understand it. And if someone points them all out to me, I can make a better decision based on all the facts, and it will still be me making that decision. And that's,
Yeah, and I think, to your point, we all build this kind of constellation of facts within our mind, to try to draw conclusions as a shortcut, right? As a mental shortcut,
yeah,
to try to identify patterns and draw conclusions about what's real and what's happening around us, and what level of influence or impact we can have on it, and what level of influence or impact it has on us and our families and our communities. And so it just becomes very confusion generating. It's almost a confusion generator function, to all
yep,
of a sudden have a lifelong history of data points that very clearly no longer are usable from a predictions standpoint. It just doesn't, you might have seen all this before, but that's not going to do you much good. So,
yep, yeah, yeah. And I think to your point earlier of the different narratives and things. I mean, I've always been fascinated. I mean, unlike you, obviously, if anybody's listening, and Mark has always been, as far as I remember him being a teenager, I'd say he was always at the planetarium when telescopes, and he was always exploring space. And even when I remember as a small kid, the first time I got to spend time with Mark, he was a little kid, couple of years old, 5 or 6. I might be. You correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. And already you had all the space shuttle goodies in your room and poster and stuff, and you had all the kit and the packs, and so I remembered that quite fondly because of course, the space shuttle was big in those days, so it gives away my age a bit, but so yeah, I remember it. And on that point, nowadays with narratives and everything, now in the news we've got, I mean, okay, we've got UAPs and unidentified flying objects and objects being shot down. So onto the space discussion, I know that like about a year ago, the defense in the States, what do you call it, your defense industry, the Department of Defense, started to release footage of UAPs or UFOs. I mean, they're not called UFOs anymore, but whatever you want to call them, UAPs, unidentified. No, what's it called? Phenomenon. I can't even remember the acronym properly, but anyway, the UAP, and that they had footage of American Air Force fighter jets coming up to these objects, which were close to the surface of the sea, hovering above the water and causing massive disturbances, and then flying up directly to the airplane in a straight line, and stopping dead still in the sky in front of the fighter jet, who of course can't stop dead still, and seeing it just turn and then disappear at light speed kind of thing. And this is verified footage, and you can find it online, etc. And NASA has even released some of the stuff, and they're paying more attention. And they've said in the last year that they don't find any of these objects as threats to flight safety, so they've left them alone. And of course, there has been lots of discussion of people like, is it the Chinese? Do they have special aircraft coming over and spying and all that kind of stuff? There's all of those narratives. And I suppose you could, I mean, if that was something that was really like important, that China doesn't need to just watch any documentaries in Hollywood to figure out what's going on in America. They need to film it as well. I don't know. But anyway, so you've
Well,
got these
I put
objects.
up the thing here, the what's funny, I think this is really kind of our what's funny, segment here. I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
it
Yeah,
just kind of becomes a situation where, I mean,
it is laughable.
I'm putting up these this picture here of these F-22s. I mean,
Yeah,
we built these things 20 years ago, and they're like the most sophisticated fifth generation fighter ever produced. And their first kill is a Chinese spy balloon. I mean, you've just got to give me a break. I mean, it's just kind of
yeah,
like, are you for real?
yeah.
Um,
A virtually stationary balloon that's hovering.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know what it is or what it isn't, right?
Yeah,
But
sure.
I do know that, you know, uh, like 1900 or 1200 or some insane number of weather balloons are released every day all around the world so that we can gather information about, wind directions
Yeah,
and speeds for aviation purposes and all the
condensations and
rest.
yeah, sure. Yeah,
And in particular, this particular balloon, China claimed, was part of a climate change experiment, right? So, you know, I don't know why they let it float over the whole country before they decided to shoot it down or whatever, but I mean,
another good question.
it seems kind of crazy to me. I mean, it's either it's a threat or it's not a threat. If it's not a threat to the point where you let it sail all across your entire country, then I think, shooting it down looks a little bit trigger happy. But I mean, you know, and now of course they've shot down more balloons, but nobody knows what the heck they are, and they're not really saying very much about it. But to a certain
Yeah,
degree, I
and
feel like it's just feeding red meat to the wolves, right? It's just let's get
but
people
there's
riled up.
more, Mark. There's more. There's not just been balloons. Yesterday they apparently shot down an octagon-shaped metal object that was flying. I'm not kidding you. There's like 3 in the last 2 or 3 days now that have happened, if not more. China also said today they shot down something. One was shot down over Lake Huron in the States, and it was octagon shaped. And I don't know. I'm just thinking to myself, out of all these years, the high technology that if there is an unidentified flying object or UAP or extraterrestrial race or whatever the case is, and they have way higher technology than us that can go at light speeds, change direction, stop on a dime, vanish, cloak. I don't even know if they can go through warp speeds and holes and black holes
Defy
and
gravity.
time warps and flip. Who knows what's capable? I mean, every movie you watch nowadays, there's some sort of alternate universe somewhere. So just if your imagination goes that way, then let it ride. So how can a F-22 or whatever it is that shot it down all of a sudden be fast enough or slow enough to catch these objects at their moment of weakness and shoot them down? I just find it all, I don't know, it's quite bizarre. My question is, do they think we're that stupid? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, they clearly do. They clearly do. And it's difficult, like I said, to even ascribe any kind of intention to it, right? I mean, is there real
Yeah,
intentionality here? Or is it just incompetence? Or is it just a distractionary tactic to try to get people to, it's a look away pass, right? Try to get people to look at something
yeah.
else when there's
Squirrel.
exactly right things going on that they don't want you to be paying attention to. But it is a very perplexing and at the same time fascinating set of circumstances. And of course, they find one in Canada, and we shoot it down, not the Canadians, who
Yeah,
are also. It's a little bit. It's all bizarre, right?
that
Um,
is a little bit bizarre.
I mean,
I
yeah,
mean, for a
NORAD's a
country
joint.
to say that, okay, we're not good enough. Sorry, Air Force, you guys are not good enough. We're going to call our neighbors to come and shoot this shit down for you
Right.
because you guys are terrible.
And then, of course, the press secretary gets on TV and says that NORAD's a joint operation with Canada instead of
Oh,
Canada,
yeah.
which I was like, you really? I mean,
Oh, boy. Oh, bless him. Yeah.
I mean, not that I would want that job. That's definitely a high pressure job. I can't
Hey,
imagine
no.
having, you know,
Hey, no.
nothing but respect there. But
Yeah, the job I want is the White House barbecue specialist, where I just sit outside and do the barbecues
chief
and
grilling
watch the
officer.
world go by.
Well, I think we're
Yeah.
just getting to an hour now, so I think that's going to be it for our show today. We'd love to hear your
Yeah.
comments. We'd love to hear what you guys think, what you want us to talk about, what you want us to explore,
Yeah.
and
Shoot us some questions.
absolutely load up the
Yeah.
comments and let's
Let us
see
know
where
what you
things
want to.
go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was just thinking, let me see if that website got designed while we were waiting. I think that's still building. That's very strange.
Wow, that's man,
Yeah.
that's gonna be quite the website when it's done, though.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's because I didn't allow durable access, but anyway, I'll check it out. But yeah, supposedly it can be done, and I tried it the other day for a friend of mine just as a joke to see if I could do a quick website for him, and I used that and said, okay, it's ready, and he was like, what? I was like, no, it's not me, it's the AI. So yeah.
Well, all right, folks. We will see you in the next episode, and leave us your comments. Let us know what you think, and have a great day.
Yep. If we don't see you through the week, we'll see you at the next tech barbecue at my house. Okay. Bring your own meat.
And bring your cousin Larry.
And my cousin Larry, and my other cousin Larry, and my cousin Daryl.
And two sets of clubs. All right, bye.